Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome
to Sports Palooza Radio.
That's right.
Are you ready for this?
Hey, yo, listen, it's going down just like this.
Like a breath of fresh air.
Who's ready for
Lisa Nucci, Anucci, and EJ, the Rainmaker.
We are now live in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Sports Palooza Radio. I'm your host, EJ, and of course I am here with the lovely Lisa.
Hi, everybody. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. Very good day. It's a good day. Next time we're on the air, I'm going to be 1 year older. My birthday is this week, so that's going to be cool. I can't believe I have to grow older, and oh, boy. All right. Today we have a pretty cool show. We're bringing on the guy, Dr. Scott Weiss, is going to come on. He's going to talk about a crazy book that he wrote. They sent us a copy of the book. It's the Cus D'Amoto Story. It's called Confusing the Enemy. And they sent us a copy of the book. Can we call this a book? What?
You know, I give the guy props. I mean, I'm a writer, and I know what it's like to put a book together. And the size of this book alone is, I mean, if you're in, we're going to talk to him about, not only reading this book if you're into boxing, but just if you're into a good story, because there's so much information in this book and so much, curiosity behind who is this guy and was he really a gangster. Now, hang on to that, because that's what we're going to talk to about later. Because Cus D'Amoto was a boxing coach, and he's behind some of the legendary boxers. But there's a real twist to this story, and this book is crazy big. And it's like it's like 700 pages.
Yeah.
So, I'm excited to talk to him because I'd like to know a little bit about how this book got started and where this whole conspiracy concept came about.
Yeah. When this book came in the mail for us to kind of go over it, I was like, what? There are dictionaries and encyclopedias that are smaller than this book. This is great. I mean, he's going to talk about Mike Tyson, Floyd Patterson, Muhammad Ali, the man, of course, Sonny Liston, Tatiana Frazier. Talk about any kind of boxer you want to talk about. I mean, this is insane. This guy, I'm tired of asking how he came up with a book this size that covers this much stuff. I think it's cool that he had. I'm looking through the book now a little bit. There's this whole schedule that they have, and these guys actually, the training that these guys go through is certainly just not random stuff. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, and it's just like I said. I mean, to just have the book, the gangster, just have the concept of the gangster.
Yeah.
So what is that all about? So he's going to be calling in just a little while. We'll get into a little bit more detail about the book.
Yeah.
At that point. So what else you got going on?
Yeah, there's a lot going on. I mean, obviously, I'm sure people are hearing about what Jan Brewer, the governor of Arizona, was kind of going through with that Senate Bill 1062, which pretty much would have allowed Arizonans the ability to cite religious beliefs as a reason to deny service to people. I mean, the NFL went to her and was like, listen, you passed this bill, we're moving the Super Bowl. I mean, and I try to not agree with them. I mean, it's amazing what people, honey, is it still 1925 somewhere?
I don't get it.
Women's rights to black rights to gay rights to people, shut up and get along. We're all just here to be together. It's amazing what people have to go through just to be recognized. I'm really kind of sick of it.
It's all very sad, and things that happened in Texas a few months, and now Arizona, and I'm not a real political, let's get into the politics kind of person, but I just find that it's really sad, and but hopefully out of the sad comes the good, and people start actually banding together to stop the crap that's going on.
Yeah, and the big deal that they made in Russia about the gays over there too. It's just so much stuff. Shut up, get along. Anyway, obviously, a lot of people were watching Daytona. We're all kind of confused to what was going on with it. It was showing it was a rain delay over there, and everyone's watching the race. I know I actually was one of the people who tuned in over there to see what was going on. And I see this beautiful sunny day, and they're racing around. I was like, wait a minute, I thought the weather was kind of weird in Daytona. And You know, at least Dale Jr. Hey, Dale Jr. Who doesn't love Dale Jr.? I mean, that was pretty cool for him to win Daytona. He needs that. I mean, he needs a championship. It's been so long. I think everyone's kind of Jimmy Johnson's obviously the best, but I want to see Dale Jr. make a run this year. I mean, he was obviously in the running last year, but didn't work out. But I'm always a Dale fan, so.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's hard not to be. Obviously you go through what you go through when your father actually, passed away right on the track. I mean,
right.
He's been through a ton.
Right. But it's his year.
It's his year. We are Dale fans officially. NCAA hoops, obviously. Selection Sunday is coming up March 16th, and the games are going to start on March 18th and 19th for the big tournament. Final Four is in Arlington, Texas this year. The championship game is going to be April 7th. And, it's amazing to see. If you look at I was looking at the top, top 25s, the top all those kind of polls and all that. See Syracuse down at 5 and 6, and some people even have them near the 10th spot. I mean, people, they lost a couple games. Well, now they're just not good enough. I see that. I mean, St. Louis. Why is St. Louis not on this big board? St. Louis is having a season. I can't believe Wichita State's running through this whole thing and still can't get the number one ranking because of the division they're in and all that. But you win every game, and no one else has won every game. Everyone's lost at least 2 games now. So they're the only team who has not only just lost a game, they haven't lost 2 games. Wichita State has got to be number one team in the nation at some point. Granted, the competition they face is kind of weaker, but whatever. I can't wait to see that tournament and how they do, because then that'll be the true test of how their season's really going to go. But did you see that baseball started yesterday?
I know.
Yeah. I love baseball. Spring training's obviously in full effect today. Yesterday they kind of got into it. Of course, the Yankees lost again to the Pirates yesterday. What do you know?
Are you continuing your thing from last year?
Obviously, for the people who don't know, last year I posted all over the place. The Yankees, I like to place a wager here and there. I'm not going to deny that. The Yankees, the Greek and all these websites came out with how many wins will the Yankees have next year, over 88 or under 88. And everybody who knows me on Twitter knows that on my forum and all that will know. I said, there's no way this Yankee team is winning 88 games this year. I'm taking the under. It's not going to happen. Obviously, ended up with like 85 wins or something. Didn't hit it because they stink. I'm sorry. Now Robinson Cano left too, which I'm actually very content with. That guy, boy, can you walk the first anymore? He kind of drives me nuts. But Sunday on March 30th at 8 o'clock, the regular season starts in San Diego with the Dodgers. That's going to be cool. I'm a big baseball fan. I don't know what I'm going to do about box scoring Yankee games this year because I'm not happy. I'm not a Girardi fan. Obviously, it's Sarakinis last year. We know that. He came out and said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore as soon as I see this as work. I mean, you've been doing this for 19 years. When was it not work? I mean, I know it's a game and it's fun, but it's all work.
Right, exactly.
What? So anyway, looks like we might have Dr. Scott on the line already, huh?
Yeah, we definitely do. We'll get to some sports entertainment stuff later then.
Yeah, we'll finish all the stuff that we have to get to in a little while. I mean, since he's calling in, I guess we're going to jump right to it. Dr. Weiss, tell me how you're doing today. Thank you for being on the show.
Oh, guys, come on. It's a pleasure. Sorry we had to kind of postpone and mix and match for a little bit, but I'm glad we're finally doing it, and today's a great day. I just finished working with one of my fighters named Tito Bracero, who actually has a title shot against Danny Garcia coming up this May.
Yeah, I saw that. That's cool, man. Is that in Vegas? Where is that?
I think it should be. I'm not sure because I didn't actually see the papers, and I don't think it was. I wasn't there when they locked it down and finalized it, but I know we just did a great strength and conditioning session and flexibility session. We do some meditation, and he's going to get ready for this fight. This is his chance to shock the world. So not many people get an opportunity. He's got it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
So your book is called Confusing the Enemy, the Cus D'Amoto Story, which, I mean, I haven't finished it yet because it's incredibly big, but it's such a cool book. For our listeners who don't know, give them just a brief idea of who Cus D'Amoto is.
Sure. Well, you're right. The book is kind of huge. It's 724 or 25 pages, so I don't expect anyone to just kind of breeze through that, number one. No. But, Cus D'Amoto, what an incredibly interesting, swarthy individual. He, I think people kind of know his background, how he was, born and raised here in New York. But, Cus is kind of like the Vince Lombardi of boxing. That's the way I kind of look at him. He really was somebody that I was interested in because he had a formula of creating champions. In addition to that, he was a guy that wouldn't get the fighter after they're amazing and after they're successful. He would really take them as a young kid and train their mind, their body, and their spirit in so many ways, and that was so attractive to me. And that's kind of like some of the essence, off the top of the cuff, of who Cus was, really a guy that had a formula for champions.
So had you been following, his life and kind of looking into it even before you thought the idea of the book, or, did you kind of learn a little bit from him that way, or did you come across him, at a certain point and say, hey, this would make a great book?
Good question. Since I saw Mike Tyson come on the scene in the early 80s, I started researching Mike. And, I happen to have been a martial artist, a very competitive one. I was a featherweight as well. I have 2 black belts in different martial arts. And when I saw a guy like Tyson, my first instinct was, who's his master? And I started then researching Cus. So after compiling tons of stuff on Mike as a youth, I realized there was a paucity of information on Cus, meaning there was not much information about his personal life. There wasn't information in his background. There was not information about his fighting style. And that's what really started to get me into the interest of doing some research. So I started collecting a whole bunch of information, clippings and articles. And, back in the day, the digital age was not around, so you can't just go sit and Google Cus. And, yeah, I must have had 5 to 10 folders worth of information. Then I realized, what am I going to do with this? I almost threw it all out at one point. And then a good friend of mine said, what, are you crazy? You probably have more information than anyone in the world on him. You better do something with it. And then the idea of the book came into mind. So that's kind of how it happened. It wasn't that all of a sudden, serendipitously, I just fell into the D'Amato family. It was having kind of all that information first and then realizing I have to do something. And nobody has written a book on him, so I realized this was kind of what I needed to do.
So how long did it take you to do all of this research? If you could kind of put a time frame, I'm sure you did it in, bits and pieces here and there too. And then where in the process, because I'm dying to get to the word gangster here, when in the process did this back story come up? And tell our listeners what that means.
Well, it's not that I have to think. This took me about a decade. I had so many interviews. I traveled all around the country and the world to try to interview anybody that was related to him, was connected to him, that even had a meeting with him. I basically made sure that I interviewed everybody. So that was really the first thing. It did take me a big chunk of time. I guess I think the second part of your question is kind of how did, when I started digging deep, where did the whole gangster idea come from and the mob? Well, in those days, in the 50s, the mob ran boxing. There was, something called, and I'm sure you guys have heard of the IBC, or the International Boxing Committee, and, they were the main people around. And the IBC was really in control of everything. You were able to count on your hands all the champions. Now there are so many different divisions and so many different commissions. So it's a little harder right now. But once I started researching the IBC, names like Frankie Carbo of the Lucchese family came around. Then I started seeing that Cus grew up with a guy named Fat Tony Salerno. And these guys just had, really great stories behind them. And Salerno being from the Genovese family, growing up in East Harlem kind of with Cus. Blinky Palermo, names like Jim Norris, who ran the Garden. That's when the words gangster kind of came to me, and I realized that that's what it was about. You have to pay to play, and that's kind of how I got into the history and research of boxing as a whole.
Crazy, man. And I love chapter 15. It's pretty much one page about Luciano and Lansky and Bugsy Siegel. I mean, man, you're talking about the 50s. Let's go back to the 40s because, I mean, it's pretty controversial back then too, Dr. Weiss.
You're absolutely right. I mean, believe me, it was like I was reading from a movie. This to me was a movie. You know what everything that Cus's life was about, everything he went through, how boxing was in its heyday and its prime, and how the mob was controlling things, and how people weren't respecting the police, and there was so much going on at that time. And you're totally right. That was intriguing to anybody, and especially me. And I just dug deeper and deeper and deeper, and really kind of got to the bottom of a lot of things about Cus, which was great, and it's all documented and chronicled in the book.
Yeah, I mean, you have I was reading through chapter 17 as well, where you have all these quotes about, I mean, actual personal stuff. How did you get the actual quotes? You literally have quotes from conversations where they were in the kitchen. How did you get that?
It's great to explain that. It's so much fun. Being a doctor of physical therapy and being an athletic trainer and a strength coach, I'm a research master. It's kind of what I learned in school is how to really do comprehensive research. So I took what I learned in academia and really applied it to this. So all the research that went through that kind of, was really at the forefront of what brought me to kind of this stuff.
Did you run across anybody, when you're dealing with, like you said, the mob ran this, and you have these guys, and you thought, okay, there's got to be some sort of a background here. Did you run into any potential problems along the way where people didn't want to talk about this?
Well, there were a lot of people that didn't want to talk about it. There were a lot of people that did want to talk about it, and there was a couple of people that were kind of on the fence, and I had to kind of coerce them to talk about it. So be that as it may, it was a little challenging at times to really get the right quotes, as you said. But, with the right research and kind of speaking with people and realizing that they knew that I was doing this for a grander reason, they were able to kind of tell me great stories. And I'll tell you a quick one, if you don't mind. I remember interviewing the Spanakos brothers, who were at the Olympics in Rome, and one of them happened to be a roommate with Cassius Clay. So Cassius was a roommate with one of the Spanakos brothers. One day he comes back into his room and he sees Cassius drinking out of the toilet. So he's like, "What the hell are you doing? Why are you drinking out of the toilet, Cassius?" Well, that happened to have been a bidet, and Cassius thought that was a water fountain. That's the type of stories you don't hear anywhere else. And true story.
Crazy.
That was in Rome. So, those quotes, so you're right, guys, those quotes and stuff like that, once you kind of realize that your person you're interviewing trusts you and you're doing this for a grander level, they roll with the stories. And that's how I was able to get a lot of that information.
So what's your overall feeling about, you researched this book, you've interviewed all these people. Did your feelings change about Cus from when you started the book to when you ended it?
That's a good question. I wouldn't say my feelings changed. I put him up on such a pedestal at one point, and then I realized by the end he was just a man struggling to find out what he was able and capable of, what he can do, and he was really just another man struggling in such rough times in New York at that time. So I think everybody has a tendency of seeing even Olympic athletes and professionals, and they put them up on a pedestal, but in actuality, they're real people struggling just like you and I with the same issues and the same dilemmas and the same uncertainties and insecurities. And I realized that, at the end, that Cus was just really a regular person just trying to make it in the world, and all he knew was boxing.
I want to ask you a weird question, Dr. Weiss.
Sure.
We had a guy on here a couple of weeks ago named Demolis Bryant. He wrote a book on football and matchups, and I guess he's starting to write a book about the history of boxing and matching up like the Floyd Pattersons and the Joe Louis to the Mike Tysons and the Riddick Bowe's and all that. I would love to have you get a hold of him, because you know the history of boxing more than I mean, seriously, man. But let's get into your history. Now, your history with boxing is tremendous. I would love to see you help him with that. I'm just suggesting something.
Sure.
I don't think it'll ever really happen, but.
But I mean, I love the dream fights. You see everybody on the digital age on YouTube are always putting together those dream fights. But Cus used to say, you can't really compare people from other eras. You can only compare people that are around at the same time, and that's the level playing field. Once you start taking one field to another, there will never be a solid answer. So Cus really didn't dabble in that, and that's the type of guy he was. He would get angry with people. You can't compare them. You can't be doing that. He just was this type of man that realized you can only work with the present, and what the present you have is tangible. Anything else in the past or anything else in the future is a little bit harder to grasp, and Cus was really all about the present.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I mean, Cus D'Amato's involvement with the Ali Frazier fight. Man, tell me about how all that went down.
You know, everybody asks me about that, and I think people just have to realize that Cus wanted his homegrown heavyweight all his life. Floyd, you look at Floyd. Floyd, people say he wasn't really a heavyweight. He could have been just a good light heavyweight, but Cus, his whole life was looking for somebody. He wanted his own Sonny Liston. That's really what he wanted. So just knowing that Cus was on a mission to find his own champion that he could control, that he can actually hold the holy grail of boxing, Cus was looking for that, and that's a real important factor. So, and I think if I'm not mistaken, the old fight of the century was at the Garden in '71. And, Cus was trying to make that happen. He didn't have a license. Ali didn't have a license. But Ali was a confidant, and Cus was a confidant to him. So they had such a close relationship. I think there was one time where, Cassius needed to go back to Louisville. Cus gave him the money to be able to drive back to Louisville. He gave him gas money, food money, stuff like that, expenses. I have a picture of him hugging Ali at the Olympics in Rome. So they slowly, over time, developed this relationship. But Cus said, Ali's all over the place. He doesn't know what he wants, doesn't know really what he wants to do. He doesn't want to listen to anybody. And Cus didn't like that. Cus wanted a protege that kind of stands at attention front and center. So in actuality, he was trying to pull different people that he knew, both from his hometown and in the mob, to try to pull things together. But I think it was, I think they call him Jack and Jerry were the two guys that ended up promoting the fight. So when the smoke cleared, I think it was Jack Cook and Jerry Parenchio. Those were the guys that actually put up the money and did everything. But Cus was hustling to try to make that happen because he wanted his own homegrown heavyweight. I think, both Ali and Frazier, were legitimate champions at the time. But Cus was just, on Ali's side and really wanted to one day work with him, possibly. But then he would change his mind, and he would go back and forth. So it never really happened, but they had such a tight relationship in so many ways. And that's kind of what we documented about how the relationship was so tight and how Cus was just trying to, get Ali back in the game, especially after, the government took away his license.
Has anybody ever come to you and said, this is a great book and the history of it would make an awesome movie?
Not yet. I haven't had anyone directly say that. There have been some terrific reviews, but I know in my heart that everything that they went through at that time, it's going to be a movie one day. And when that does happen, I hope that they realize that they can come to me and I can really give them such deep insight into Cus from a personal level and on a professional level. So no one at this point, but you never know. Rome was not built in a day, so they say.
Well, my opinion on that, writer to writer, is you should be going to Hollywood and telling them to make this a movie. There's a big difference. Don't wait till Hollywood comes knocking on your door. Go knock theirs down.
Yeah.
Nah, thank you. I'll take that to heart. I appreciate that.
And this weekend, apparently, HBO starts with boxing again, and they have the Chavez versus Vera and rematch and other things going on this weekend. Talk to us about, with that starting up again and your book being released, what's the future of boxing? Is it as popular as still today as it once was, and do you see it continuing?
I mean, I don't like sugarcoating anything. Boxing is definitely not as popular as it was. I think that the UFC definitely draw and took many, many people away from that. So I think that things are not where they were 100%. But again, things go in cycles. And, when we look at the way the world works, it is cyclical, and it's kind of like a sine curve. Things will go up, things will go down. Sometimes you're ahead, sometimes you're behind. So I do think that the future of boxing is good, but we need desperately somebody similar to like an Ali, similar to like a Tyson, that just has this character, this amazing character that basically transposes boxing, that goes way beyond. And I think that's really what we need in the boxing world, is somebody that has that charisma that Ali had, or the ferociousness of Tyson. That's what people were attracted to back in the day, and I think we're just looking for that again.
Yeah, the UFC is obviously definitely taking its toll on the boxing, and plus the referees and the judges have really killed a lot of events too. And there have been so many decisions in the last 10, 15 years where you watch those fights and you're just like, oh, wait, come on, that is impossible. So and like you said, with the mob being involved, 50, 70 years ago, who's to say they're still not involved?
Yeah, that's right. And, the people, unfortunately, certain people are corrupt, and people get paid off, and it's what happens. And, I'm not, again, making something up. People know that this transpires to this day, unfortunately, in almost any field. And, look at the Olympics. People, I just got back from Colorado Springs working with a lot of our Olympic athletes while the major staff was in Russia, and there are always controversies around the Olympics and the figure skating. And anytime there's judging, there's going to be questions. And I'm hoping that one day that can level off so boxing's name kind of gets a little stronger of a foundation.
Yeah, I'm a big soccer guy myself, so I've been involved. I've been following soccer for most of my life, man. And there's a big major scam going on there about fixed matches too. It happens everywhere, man. College basketball, boxing, it happens everywhere, and a lot more than people actually want to admit.
It's true. It's exactly true. It's unfortunate at this time, but you're right. It does penetrate multiple sports, and whenever you have judges sitting there looking at something, truthfully, people can definitely see a different view. But by the same token, other people's views can be swayed and skewed. And unfortunately, that's what we're up against when you have a judge writing numbers down on what they saw.
Yeah.
So tell our listeners, how they can get the book, and then also talk about, if you're not a boxing fan, what can they take away from this book, and why should they be picking it up just as much as a boxing enthusiast would?
Well, you can get the book right now online at www.confusingtheenemy.com. And not only can you buy the book, something that I was able to unearth were Cus D'Amoto's audio training tapes. And to me, I've been working and training with these tapes for years now, and Cus made these audio tapes for Jose Torres when he was fighting Pastrano. And these audio tapes were the same training tapes that Mike used. So, that you can also purchase on the web and on, Confusing the Enemy site. And I think that for boxers, they'd like that. But for people that are not boxers, some people are always concerned about winning, how champions are made. The history of New York is in there. There's a lot of history of New York and the old New York that transpired. Places like the Stork Club. We talk about a lot of different restaurants that went on. So if you kind of want a little bit of a history of New York, then I think it's great. If you want to see how champions were created through somebody's eyes, I think that has a lot of crossover to any athlete. And and finally, I would just say that the book is such a comprehensive book on everything that Cus went through. When somebody wants to kind of relate to somebody, all the trials and tribulations that Cus D'Amoto went through, trying to get to where he was, is very relative to everybody's struggles in life. So again, it's a lot more than a boxing book. It's a lot about those struggles as well.
Yeah, tell me, Dr. Weiss, how did you come up with the Mike's training camp? How did you find that information? I'm looking at the whole thing that Mike Tyson went through when he was training. That's a great little thing. How did you find that?
Well, again, when you're a research master and you keep on researching it, I was lucky enough, to talk to Kevin Rooney at length and go over specific techniques. I spoke to Ramona Torres, who actually gave me the rights and legally allowed me to reproduce them. So, I basically just asked permission, and that's really what it came down to. I found these things. They were so happy. Not only did the people that I interviewed, I was able to give a copy of that to so they can hear Cus's voice echoing through their home and other gyms, but, that was really what it came down to, was kind of just, making sure that there was some sort of audio that we can preserve. And forget about if you're a fighter. You can hear exactly the style of the peekaboo. You hear Cus making corrections. You hear Cus calling out the specific numbers and combinations. And boy, oh boy, for any fighter, that's exciting.
Yeah, I wonder how many people actually know about Cus being appointed Mike Tyson's legal guardian. I mean,
yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that happened. Obviously, Cus's, Tyson's mom died, Lorna, and at that time, obviously, in the middle of training, he was distraught. He was really distraught. There were a lot of times when Mike was up in the Catskills, and he would always go down and visit on the weekends. He would visit his mom until the one day his mom did pass. And, Cus didn't want him dwelling so much on that at the time. So one answer was Cus swooping him up under his wing, making sure that he felt that he had a home and he had somewhere to go, and then he was able to move and continue training. So I think that was really important for Mike, knowing that old Italian man loves him somehow, and it was really hard for him to understand and figure out, but that was really key.
Is this all the research that's in the book? Have you saved any, even though it's a big book, I mean, do you have any additional research, or have you uncovered more stuff since this book's been published?
Since the book's been published, I really wanted to make sure that was out there and a dialogue would start. For some reason, there's still a lot of people that don't want to talk about the whole scenario. I wasn't able to get Teddy Atlas to really open up in the way I wanted to. There was a female fighter that Cus worked with. She wasn't able to open up. A lot of people are still scorned about what transpired. So again, my book, if all it does is starts a dialogue, be that as it may, I'm happy. But no, I haven't specifically unearthed new things, and people have not been, so to say, coming out of the woodworks at this point. No.
So the finality of the book, I mean, I don't want to give it away, but was everything kind of confirmed as to his involvement, or is it really just one of these types of situations where people are going to be debating this forever?
Well, Cus led his life so secretively, and I don't, when I wanted to write this book, I wanted to write a strict biography, but when you write a biography, you have to have 2 and 3 references for every single thing you say. And I had so much conflicting information from different people who swore that they were telling me the true story. From Joey Fariello's wife, Teresa, to speaking to Buster Mathis Jr., to speaking to Kevin Rooney. So many people had different stories, and it was really me that had to tweeze out or look at the colors through the prism and just find the truth in everybody's story or what was similar. And that's really what I wrote about. So, yeah, there are other people that might have different stories or might have seen it from a different angle, so to say. But everything that we documented, we're able to prove, period.
It's really kind of sad that he missed most of Mike Tyson's professional career. I mean, Mike went professional in the early '85, and we lost Cus in late '85.
I know.
I mean, he missed a lot of Mike
You're right.
Tyson. Mike Tyson.
That's the irony of the book. You got it. No, that's the irony of the book. Cus wanted his whole life to have his own heavyweight champion, to pull all the belts together. And that's right. He never got to see it happen, but it did. He predicted it, and it happened. And that's what almost gives me chills on the back of my neck to think about that. He saw this in this fighter. And even forget about me getting chills. Mike breaks down to this day saying, and his question to this day is, how did that old man see it in me? Because Mike has trouble seeing certain things in himself. So, yeah, I mean, that's just fascinating how Cus saw that and was able to kind of pick that out right away.
Yeah.
So where did your interest in boxing come from? And, talk about your involvement in it today.
Well, two main ways. I had an Uncle Sammy on my mom's side who was a boxer, and when I was a little kid, I mean, I'm talking 3, 4, he would just have these slap boxing fights with me whenever I would go to the house, and I got interested in trying to slap box him back as a little kid. And that was one way. Another really huge way was my dad worked for NBC for over 50 years, and he did sports. He covered sports. He covered the fights. He covered so many things, and as a young kid, I would kind of go to work with him, and I would get a chance to see some of these fights live, and to see the big blue ring, and to see a Super Bowl live sitting on the grass, and things like that really started to give me a really strong interest in that angle. And then as I got a little older, my family was able to kind of put me into my first martial arts class. And then I was able to take it from there. I knew I loved it. So I started with one martial art called Tang Soo Do, received my black belt in that. From there, I started to box as a featherweight. Never really did too good in the Golden Gloves, but I fought at a lot of tournaments in the area and in New York and in the tri-state area. And then from there, I studied Aiki Jiu-Jitsu, which I got another black belt degree in. So kind of you could see my whole life was really learning, understanding the art and philosophy of pugilism.
Yeah, it's really interesting, too, because your bio says that you were part of the sports medicine team for the 2004 Athens Olympics, the 2008 in Beijing, and 2012 in London. I mean, talk about that. That must have been some experience.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of that. I mean, I'm not a writer, believe it or not, as my trade. I did study for over a decade to get my degrees in physical therapy and athletic training. And over time, I applied to the United States Olympic Committee. And at that time, I wanted, again, like Cus, see how champions train. I wanted to see the psychology of the best athletes in the world. And, guys, I would have cleaned the toilets if they told me to, just as long as I could peek around the corner and see what they're doing. So that was kind of, I started off with this, it was a volunteership in actuality. The USOC had a volunteer program, so you have to wait on a waiting list for 7 years. And then finally I got a call. And, of course, when I got the call, I was like, wow, am I going somewhere? They're like, no, Scott, take it easy. We're just updating your application. You're not going anywhere. But yet 2 weeks after that, I got invited to go to Lake Placid and work with USA Volleyball. And the rest is history. I really did so well there, progressed my way up, and this was in 2001, progressed my whole way up, and, yes, was lucky enough to be part of the sports medicine staff, really taking care of our Olympic athletes. Anything from a bee sting to a heart attack to a stretch. I'm there on the sidelines for the best athletes in the world, and I'm so proud of that.
Are you going to be in Rio?
I'm hoping. I'm hoping I'm going to be in Rio. Usually I do work the summer games, and if it happens and it's in my cards, so be it. But I'm one of those people that if I get too excited and I focus too much on the prize, I miss it. So I kind of have that relaxed mindset, and just I keep on walking the path, and hopefully it falls.
Yeah, we hope so too. I mean, we've had like 11 Olympians on our show in the last couple of weeks. I mean, we've been covering the Olympics. I don't think any other radio show's done what we've done. So if you get involved with that, we definitely want to have you back on the air to talk about your experience.
My pleasure. Anything. I mean, what a lot of people have been asking me is, how do the best athletes train? What kind of exercises do they do? Do they stretch? What do they say to themselves at night when they pull the covers up to their neck and they're staring at the ceiling? All those things are so in-depth, and you could see that there's such a parallel with what Cus and his creation of champions are about. And I guess I could say it's really part of my whole life right now, is understanding that.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Did you get to meet Jerry Cooney? I see you wrote your foreword. Have you gotten to really sit down with Jerry Cooney, though?
Yeah, Jerry's a great guy. I was on his Sirius show Friday night at the Fights with Randy Foreman. Is it Randy Foreman? Did I say his name wrong? You guys could probably help me with that. Do you ever watch the Sirius or hear the Sirius Friday night at the Fights? Randy Gordon, excuse me. Randy Gordon, he's the commissioner. Duh, Scott, come on. But, so I was able to be on their show, and it was great. Jerry's a great guy. He was able to really tell me about his experiences, why he went up to the Catskills with Cus, what he thought about Cus, why they didn't work together, why he wanted them to work together. So Jerry was a guy that was so cool and so natural and had such a great ability to open up to me. Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Your dad was obviously a big influence on everything you got going on, too, huh?
Absolutely. To this day. I mean, my dad used to travel with the Today Show and Where in the World is Matt Lauer and NBC Sports, and he happened to have been one of the first people to ever, as an engineer, put a camera on the top of a boxing ring looking down. And now that is almost everywhere. We always see a camera on the top of the ring. But my dad tells me he climbed up in the garden's rafters and on those beams to be able to put an NBC camera looking down. And I think we all know that Rocky mimicked that as well, where you have the camera looking down at the ring. So, my dad had a really, really big influence on me in so many different ways, and I'm glad I could still share that with him right now.
Yeah. Oh, he's still around? That's cool.
Yeah, he's still around, and he's doing well, and he's just, he's obviously so proud of the things that I'm doing because he's been to every Olympic Games since I've been born, and now to see your son going to the Olympic Games on a different level, I mean, I hope I have a child one day and I can kind of look in his eyes and see that same thing. That'd really be a treat.
Oh, that would be fantastic. So what do you think, man? Mike Tyson versus Bruce Lee. Who do you got?
Wow, that's tough. But you know what? I probably would say Bruce.
Yeah, me too.
Bruce was like water. Bruce was able to mesh and change and switch things up on the dime. And Cus used to say, if you can't mix it up and you can't change it on a dime when you're in there, you'll never be great. And I think that Bruce Lee, his whole passion was about being like water and flowing like water and being adaptable. And, I guess I have my inkling leaning towards Bruce. Good question.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just think Bruce would hit you like 11 times before you actually realized you even got hit. I mean,
that's right.
he was quick, man. I mean, he invented speed, obviously.
And the ability of switching levels and going low, then high. And, again, we could have a whole other conversation about Bruce one day, guys. I'd love to share some of the stuff that I've found on him, too. He was somebody that I researched a lot as well.
Yeah, that should be your next book. It would probably be as big as Confusing the Enemy was, because Bruce Lee was awesome.
That would be nice.
Well, Scott, thank you so much for coming on the show. I mean, your book is absolutely amazing. And for our listeners, again, it's confusingtheenemy.com, and it's Dr. Scott Weiss. And the name of the book, obviously, is Confusing the Enemy, the Cus D'Amoto Story. And I'm telling you, I'm going to make a prediction right now that we will have you back on this air when you sign that major motion picture deal. This is a great
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
And just to leave you with, just so you know, the Paralympians are now going to be, training and competing in Sochi, so go USA.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we talked about that on our last show. I mean, they're going to be there. We're definitely going to be covering that. We're going to hope to try and get a couple of them, actually. I mean, like I said, Dr. Weiss, we have been covering the Olympics like nobody else, so we love that stuff.
Awesome. Anything I could do to help you guys, please feel free to give me a call. Any ideas you have, that'd be great.
Great, Doctor. Thank you so much. Good luck with the book.
You are the
guys,
best,
have a good rest of the day. Thanks, guys. You rock. I appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye-bye, guys.
That's cool. I mean, this book is awesome. You and I have been sitting around, and we leave the book on the coffee table, and we peek at it here and there, and I keep, I mean, it's just, every once in a while, I look over to you, like, did you know this, and did you know that? This book, like you said, 725 pages of real information. I mean, it's not like he wasted any time along the way, just kind of fill in this and fill in that. These are all quotes and events that literally happened as they were tremendous.
I agree. I mean, again, even if you're not a boxing fan, and the one thing I want to point out is he said earlier, they don't really have the same kind of names and big stars in boxing as we had growing up, where you knew Muhammad Ali, or you just kind of followed certain boxers, and it was awesome. And I watched it even though I wasn't a boxing fan. And today it's not really the same, but you get that flavor and you get that feeling of those times back in this book, and it tells a story. And definitely want to check it out. So, again, go to confusingtheenemy.com, whether you are or are not a boxing fan, even if you just like a good story or a good bio. This is definitely one to pick up.
Oh, for sure.
If you can pick it up.
If you can pick it up. This thing is more than just a paperweight.
But it's cool. It's very cool. And I give him a lot of props for all the research and a decade's worth of work to put into a book. Yeah. And I think that's fantastic.
That's ridiculous. I mean, and he went back to the 20s, 30s, 40s. I mean, he covered, from 85? He covered about 60, 70 years worth of boxing in this book. I mean, it's not like he just said, he didn't just jump from boxer to boxer either. I mean, Cus D'Amoto was a part of boxing on such a scale. I mean, even down to the mob, and down to the judges, and down to his training schedules, and anyway, I could sit here, just like Dr. Weiss said, I could sit here and talk about this stuff all day. And I could talk about this stuff all day.
Yeah, we have some other things coming up, and before we get to our next guest, double this time, just a few things going on in sports and television and sports entertainment. As you mentioned, baseball is going to be spring training.
Nice.
I want a vacation. That's what this is about.
Okay.
Spring training just started, and on that note, just to let everybody know that Mike Schmidt is returning to the Phillies. I used to love him. I'm glad he's back, and he'll join Sportsnet as a member of the club's broadcast team for 13 Sunday home games, and he'll work as an analyst alongside Tom McCarthy for Sundays. So there's bit of information on that. And, we're going to have on, it's real interesting because, we talk about a book about sports, and we're actually next going to talk about something a little interesting, which is not a book and it's not a movie. It's a musical. And we're going in a direction that I never really thought that this topic would go, but we're going to be speaking to the people who are behind a musical about Jeremy Lin.
Which is crazy. Obviously, everybody who knows anything about basketball, when Jeremy Lin came out of Harvard, the Knicks kind of picked him up. Everybody who's a New Yorker will remember the Linsanity that he brought to the. I think everybody was shocked when they let him go, and he ended up going to Houston. We thought he was going to be like a New York little icon, and obviously injuries have been a big part of his career right now. It's just he hasn't been able to stay healthy. But, the Linsanity was huge in New York. You go back and look at the Daily News and the Post and all that stuff. And the Linsanity. It was he definitely came out and just made a whirlwind of his career. Now it's just kind of, we'll see how he does. But he's got a long way to go still.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking to the people behind that and try to find out, when they thought that his career would actually make a good musical.
Yeah.
So while we wait for them to call in, just a couple other things. Speaking about television and entertainment and baseball, Major League Baseball is going to be having on MTV2 off the bat from the MLB Fan Cave, and it's going to be hosted by Sway, Fat Joe, Chris Stefano, and Melanie Iglesias, and it's going to showcase the lives of players ranging from Robinson Cano to David Ortiz to Jose Fernandez, and the program's going to launch in April as a weekly half-hour series. So if you're a baseball fan, definitely check it out.
Yep. And
if you're a basketball fan, we have exactly who we were talking about on the phone, and I wanted to just welcome the people behind Jeremy Lin, the unauthorized musical. And Anna, are you on the phone?
I am.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. We have Anna Parsons. Is it pronounced Edelyn? Okay.
It's Edelyn Okano. Yeah.
Okay, we have Edelyn also on the line. We're going to pull her in as well.
Yeah. Hey, Edelyn, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
That's cool. Thank you. I'm great. Thank you so much for both of you coming on the show. This is such a tremendous to have you both. This musical looks. Who came up with this idea? How do you come up with a Jeremy Lin story?
Well, I think it was just inspiration, really. Like the three of us are Asian American, and obviously we're really moved and inspired by the Linsanity movement. And when we all sat down and knew that we wanted to create a piece of original work, we jostled around with the different ideas. But then when we came across the idea of Jeremy Lin, it just seemed like the right thing to do because really, when that all happened, obviously a lot of stuff about his life came out, about the history of, this, that, and the other, milestones in his career, but there really wasn't any, story as to, the personal story about Jeremy Lin. Now, our story is obviously taking creative license, but we just decided to basically write the backstory, like what we think the backstory of the makings of a hero is.
But Edelyn actually does not, she doesn't want to boast. She is the one that thought of the musical when we had that meeting. So, just to be totally honest, Edelyn in the three, in our writing team.
Are you working at all with Jeremy on this? Does he know that there is musical on his life?
I'm pretty sure he's aware of it. He's not part of the creative process in any of this. So in that way, that's a little unfortunate, only because, it would be great to have him on board in some way. However, we do have some connections to Jeremy, and really all we would want him to do would be just to see the show and endorse it in a way that just, says that, he likes what he sees, and because it's a great, funny, positive, loving show that sends a really great message, and in the end, basically just sort of builds up his mystique, I guess.
But in your description of the show, you talk about how you're focusing on how he fights to surpass racial discrimination, his own personal demons, and even a crazy girlfriend or two. So how do you take, I'm a huge fan of musicals, but first of all, what were those personal demons, and how do you incorporate that into a loving musical?
That's great.
Well, his own personal demons, I think, that's just who he is, who he is in himself, who he is when he looks in the mirror. Not that him being Asian is a personal demon, but he has this internal struggle with himself. During her show, he tries to become black because he thinks that if he becomes black, he can actually get into the NBA. So he's fighting that, and then he ends up fighting, trying to date the girl he thinks that he should be dating, because if he dates her, then he can be cool, and then he can, rise to the top. And these are the things that, we all think in society, like, if we date the right girl, if we wear the right clothes, if we do the right thing, like, that's how we're going to rise to the top. And in the end, we end up discovering that if he just is okay with who he is, and when he loves himself and believes in himself, that he's going to be able to make his way to the top and win.
Yeah, I thought it was cool that he came out when the whole Jason Collins story came out. Jeremy was really, really vocal about how cool he thought it was.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he seems to have he's got great PR, you know what I mean? I think it's he's faced so much adversity in his rise to fame and recognition as a player, that really at some point you just have to go, screw it. I mean, people are going to say what they're going to say, and people are certainly going to do it when you bust out the way he did, and when you sort of, beat all the naysayers and do your thing. People are always, that's the time when you're literally at the center of the bullseye. So, yeah, I think it shows a lot about his character, and certainly about the grace that he has in representing himself and being true to who he actually believes he is. Yeah.
So tell us about the actual production. I mean, have you put together portions of the show and showcased it yet, or is it still being written and cast in a sense, or where are you in the broadcast part of it?
Well, we actually have quite a history with it already. So we did our very, very first performance of it in May of 2012 at the Zephyr Theater here in Hollywood. That performance was, at that time, really intended to be the only performance. We had written the show just, really just as an extension of what we do as actors every single day, just that we, instead of just, taking somebody else's already wonderfully written work, doing it with our own written work. But we actually never thought that we were going to take it, to an extended run, or wanted to make it into a bigger show. We just wanted to write something and see how it went, and we were able to couple that with doing it as a benefit performance, where all the proceeds went to a great charity called Love Never Fails World Charity, and they basically fight child sex trafficking in mainly third world nations. So we did the performance where all the proceeds went to that, and put it up at the Zephyr Theater in Hollywood, and basically got a standing room only audience that night, which blew us all away because, that was not really expected. We were kind of thinking, 2 weeks before, or even a week before, oh God, are people going to buy tickets, or is anyone going to show up? Other than, just our friends and family, and they did, and it was amazing. It was amazing to have that kind of response, and certainly at the end of the performance, to have people who aren't our friends and family, people who just sort of came from word of mouth, say, like, where are you going to do this again? Like, are you going to continue the story? This is amazing. Like, how crazy. Like, who would have thought, a musical about Jeremy Lin, So with all of that feedback, we took it to San Francisco in October of 2012, and we decided to workshop it, which basically means they were work-in-progress performances, and we gave all of the audience members feedback forms where they could be as verbal as they wanted to be, and they would just write it out and basically say what they liked about the show, what they didn't like the show, what they'd like to see changed, everything, every gamut of it, put everything down, no holds barred. And that was great because obviously, when people have the opportunity to be vocal and in a way anonymous, people just say whatever they want to say, which was awesome because that's exactly what you want. You want people to tell you what they don't like about the show, what they love about the show, what they want to see more of. So we took all of that and we basically went back to the book and started to make tweaks to try to cater to what our audience wants, keeping in truth with what we obviously want for the show, but just making it better, just taking it to the next level. And then so basically in February of 2013, we were asked by the Upright Citizens Brigade here in LA to put the show up on their stage, but then make it a 30-minute version. So our show runs just a little bit over an hour when it's a full-length show, and this time we had to pare it down to 30 minutes. And so that was a little challenging, but we were able to do it, and still tell pretty much a concise story. And again, from that performance, people who hadn't seen the show were saying, great, this is amazing, when's the full-length show? And then people who had come sort of along the way since the Zephyr were just like, wow, this show's getting better and better and better. So in the summer of this past summer, June 2013, we put it up as part of the Hollywood Fringe Festival. And then basically at that point, we just sort of decided, we have something really special here. And even though Jeremy Lin isn't quite on the forefront as he was before. He's not, front page news as of right now. That doesn't mean that, he's still doing his thing. He's still playing well, and he's still certainly, probably the only prominent Asian in the NBA. So it's still a great story, and really our goal was just to tell a great story. And so that's why we were inspired to just keep going and this time take it to the best level we possibly can, which obviously requires a bit more of a budget than we were working before in the past. And so we started the Indiegogo campaign.
Mm-hmm. So you're looking to raise additional money to take this further? Is your goal Broadway?
To say that right now seems a little, that's like that seems almost a little crazy, But
yeah, but to be honest, whose goal isn't Broadway?
Right, exactly.
Of course, I think that when you're workshopping theater for many, many years, I like to call, and I probably sound redundant at this point, but I really love to call our show Book of Mormon with Asians, because it literally is incredibly fun, incredibly campy, incredibly in your face, a little bit racist, a little bit Avenue Q. We've got a lot of things that you're like, did they really say that? Did they really cut on themselves? But in the end, it's still a story with heart. It's still a story where you're rooting for the underdog. And I think that's why our show shines. But I do believe, I think after, I think depending on where we end up going with this Indiegogo, and I think our cast and our crew, we all really, really believe in the show. I do think we have the capability of taking it a lot farther, but it just really depends on the exposure and the amount of money we're able to raise for this campaign over the next year.
That's cool. Are you guys basketball fans, like Knicks fans, Houston fans, or just general fans? How does that go?
Well, I would like to say I am an NBA fan. I can't quote player stats or anything like that, but I certainly, like, in high school I played, girls basketball, and I loved Michael Jordan like everyone else did, and I followed certain teams here and there. And I certainly love, here in LA, anytime I get a chance to actually go see a Laker game or a Clipper game, I love it. I think it's so exciting and certainly a lot of fun. So yes, I'm a fan, but again, like, I can't sit here and be like, yeah, this person did this and that and whatever. But I just appreciate it fully.
So what can our listeners do? They can follow on the website. If I believe you also have a Twitter page, correct? Or how can they follow you?
Well, we have a Facebook page, which has been up for quite some time, and it was been up since we've been doing the Zephyr and the San Francisco performances. So anybody going onto Facebook can go to Jeremy Lin the Musical and see our page there and see, production stills from the past, and just if you go through the timeline, see, what we've been up to going back to the beginning. And also certainly Indiegogo is where our campaign page is, and that's where you'll find a really, really great video that we shot. So if anybody's at all curious as to what exactly we're trying to do, there's going to be music video there where we have, we do a musical number, and it'll give you an idea of what to expect if we can actually take this, if we can get funded and put up the production we want to put up. So Indiegogo.com and Jeremy Lin the Musical in the search bar, and you'll definitely find us there.
And I definitely want to stress, no donation is too little. I'm sure a lot of your listeners know about, theater, musical theater, and raising money for film, and anything is appreciated. $1, like $2, $5, whatever. Anything will help us achieve our goal of getting to Broadway, baby. So please don't hesitate to even throw us $1 or $5.
Yeah, we're definitely going to put the links to those on our website at radio.sportspalooza.com, so people can access that right through us too.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Terrific. So that's awesome, guys. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing, and being a fan of the arts and a fan of sports. I love when they come together and you have a project like you. So I wish you the best of luck with it, and please keep us posted.
Yeah.
If it ever comes to New York, we expect to come and see it.
Yeah.
So,
we'll be there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So
good luck on the show.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you for coming on, guys. Have a good rest of the week and weekend.
You too.
Bye. You too. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so just to repeat for our listeners out there, Indiegogo.com is a crowdfunding place. It's basically they're looking to go and to raise money to continue working on this project and getting it out to more venues and just continuing with their goals on this project, which, like I said a minute ago, I love when you can combine, when you have like something like Damn Yankees, and that's the sports and the arts come together, and, to have another musical coming out there that's sports related. I love that kind of stuff. I think I love the nice merge of the two entertainments. So I think that's great. So good luck to them on that, and you'll be able to find that stuff on our website and on our Twitter page, and please, feel free to help them out.
Yeah, that'd be great. They could use the help, obviously, and we'd love to have them make it to New York and be on the big stage over here in the big city. That would be pretty
Absolutely, cool. Absolutely. Like they said, that's everybody's goal that starts a musical is to hopefully be on Broadway one day.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Even if it's the Los Angeles side of it all, Broadway's Broadway. They have a pretty nice LA scene over there too. So I'm sure that they're, she's already, like she said, she's in California going to Laker games whenever she can. And
right.
So
right.
even on that side, New York is obviously the place to be, but LA is not that far off.
Right. No, I agree. So, it's been a great show, and the one thing that, I do want to point out, we talked about a couple weeks ago, just to to wrap it up, is we talked about the WWE launching their network, and we didn't just want to drop that and just say, hey, they're launching this. I'm a huge WWE fan, and I went and checked it out, and got to tell you, it's pretty cool. For the value of what you're getting, and the fact that my kids just jumped right in and were able to watch old wrestling matches and WrestleMania events from when I was growing up, and they can look at pretty much, you put in any of the superstars that you want.
Don't even hold on.
Right.
Listen to you. All of my kids can go look at. What is the first thing Elisa goes and does? I'm going to go look up Dino Bravo. I'm going to go look up Triple H back when he had long hair. You love it as much as your kids do, and you know it.
Well, you know what? I started watching wrestling when I was about 8 or 9 years old. I have 3 older brothers, and they kind of introduced me to it. It was a lot of fun, and I went to my first wrestling match when I was about 12 years old. Went to Madison Square Garden. And it's always been fun, and it's always been something that we sat around as a family and watched. And then when I got older and I had kids, we sat the kids around and we watched it. And I'm not one of those believers that, oh, my God, they're watching wrestling, they're going to turn into violent kids. Because if you know my kids, they are far from violent, and they watch wrestling more than anybody else I know right now. So, it's just a lot of fun. And the fact that it's this network where you're not just watching that week's show, but you could actually go back and watch other shows and other documentaries and some of their kooky new reality shows that they have in there. I don't really think I'm fans of those, but it gives a little bit for everybody. So bravo to them. I'm looking forward to it, to exploring it some more. But check it out. And so that was the big news in the sports entertainment world over the last couple weeks.
There you go, honey.
So, it's just my news. It's just my news now. So that kind of wraps up our show. Yeah. And we're actually going to be doing a special. Another special edition of our Olympic coverage, and you're going to want to check that out.
Yeah.
It's going to be tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow we're going to air we did 2 more interviews with Tyler Wallace and Heather Petrie, and we're going to air that tomorrow to finish our Olympic segment. But it's ironic that, of course, we ended up having an Olympian kind of in our own way today with Dr. Weiss. So where does this Olympics end for us? It's just Olympics.
I'm not complaining,
no.
And like I said, I think it was a great show. I think our athletes did a great job, and with the exception of a couple that didn't really show some class, I'm very proud of the way that our athletes performed, and whether they won a medal or not, it's just they did the best they could, and just keep looking forward to the next one down the road. So that was a lot of fun, that whole event.
Yeah,
so
it was good for us too. It helped us a lot. But all right, let's get out of here. Obviously, thanks for tuning in. You can check us out at Palooza Radio on Twitter and radio.sportspalooza.com and see what we have. And you can look for all the sites and advertisers and all the stuff that we have supporting us and all that kind of stuff. So thanks for listening, and bye-bye.